you go. Gal Guardians. Yeah, so this is like a, I don't know, this is kind of a weird game where a lot of people thought it'd be like Symphony of the Night just because of how it looks, but it actually plays a lot more like Bloodstained, Curse of the Moon, which if you don't know, that's kind of like this weird in-between. I'd say it's more like Rondo of Blood Castlevania style game where there's like branching paths, there's like hidden secrets, and that kind of unlocks different endings and things like that depending on what you do kind of thing. I will say, actually, one thing I should mention before we get too deep into this, I played this through Steam stream play kind of thing, so I had a little bit of trouble there just because connection issues always, but I always think the Steam multiplayer thing works, but this is a local only game, so I had to remotely play with a friend kind of thing. But yeah, it's got that Curse of the Moon structure, so it does have like a little bit of exploration, but it's primarily kind of a point A to B platformer, but you will revisit a lot of places, which I think we'll get into later. But I think the big difference is that Curse of the Moon is a game very much built off like Castlevania 3, where you have the ability to play like multiple different characters and things like this. This more or less just has two characters. In single player, you can switch between the two. In two players, you do not switch between the two. You just like help each other out basically. So where Curse of the Moon is a little bit more focused on like what type of abilities each character has, this game feels a lot more focused on sub-weapons. So the primary moveset is, I think Shinobu is the main girl's name, and she's got like an Uzi, and so like all of her sub-weapons typically are built around like ranged attacks and explosives and things like that. So these all very much kind of like ranged damage kind of moves. But then also you have Maya, which is the secondary character. And she's a melee-focused kind of glass cannon style character. Which I don't like her sub-weapons as much. They're a lot more like puzzle-oriented, I'd say, than they are useful for combat. So there does like feel like there's this very big focus on like I don't want to use, or for at least me, this feeling of like I don't want to use any of Maya's sub-weapons because they waste energy, and I'd rather have the main girl with the explosives use those instead. So, but yeah, so it's kind of like this, I guess you could say, pretty standard kind of 2D action platformer with a little bit of like light narrative or like light exploration. It is, if you don't know, the pun of this game's name is Gal Guardians, which is based off the Gal Gun franchise, which I haven't played Gal Gun yet. I do have one of the games on Switch, but basically it's this whole series that's kind of about trying to get a girl by going around and shooting them with the pheromone gun or whatever. It's very jokey. It's a very like silly way that they kind of present this kind of like I guess you could say finding your high school romance kind of thing, and it is goofy in the way that like a lot of these kind of like more anime-esque like sexual focused kind of games can be. But because of that, I think narratively it doesn't have a lot going on. It's definitely more about just like, do you enjoy the character interactions in this game? And so all the characters are kind of goofy. It does have that problem where like some character dialogue just feels like it goes on a little too long sometimes, where it's just like I feel like I'm like going through the gym and like you're rescuing schoolgirls and stuff, and they can talk to you in the gym and stuff like that, and it's just like, oh, these are just long dialogue trees they have to go through. Or you don't have to go through them; they're optional, but they don't take that long. But there's just a lot of girls to kind of get through, kind of thing. But it can get a little repetitive overall. Basically, there's kind of like 3 core playthroughs. You kind of have your first playthrough where you unlock all your sub weapons and stuff, and then you have a secondary playthrough that you use to basically unlock the upgrades to your sub weapons. And in these secondary playthroughs, you get, when you have your sub weapons, you have access to different paths and things like that. So you can go ahead and kind of like navigate through different alternative paths and start trying to finish getting all the collectibles and things like that. And then you get to like the end of the game, you get like an alternate boss ending and all that stuff. But then they ask you to play through the game a third time. And I feel like the third time, it's a little much. And like part of my beef with the third time playing it is this, it basically asks you to go on a collectathon through the game again without offering any really new content. You know, the sub weapons aren't really, aren't like upgrading anymore. What's it called? With like secret doors and stuff, they're like, you've been through all the secret doors and all that stuff. So really all you're doing is going and like revisiting old areas, and there's no like marker on you have like a compass that usually shows you like treasures and where like lost schoolgirls are and things like that. There's no like markers on your compass or anything like that for them. So it just feels like you're blindly running through this castle trying to hope you find all the other panties. You have to find a bunch of panties in the environment. So it's a little, it's one of those games that just like, I think it could have been a little shorter and the game probably would have been better for it. But the ending itself that you get from doing the collectathon stuff, I think is pretty fun and pretty cute. And if you're a Galgun fan, you probably already played this, but it has like a nice little kind of like Easter egg ending to it that I think is really fun. And so, yeah, it's just like a totally solid kind of game like this. I do think I like it more than like Curse of the Moon 2, because as much as I think is like Curse of the Moon 1 and 2, well, they're both probably better games than Gal Guardians. I think Curse of the Moon 2 is just a little too samey compared to the first game. The big difference with that game is that they added on 2 players, and so that was kind of like the novelty of it, and that's how I played it last time. But when I think about the core game, I think this one just puts a little extra distance between it and the original Curse of the Moon, so it makes it feel a bit more fresh. And so I overall think I preferred playing this game if I wanted something that felt a little bit more distinct. But I do think it's very much still in that kind of like Bloodstained Curse of the Moon line kind of thing. So